how I failed in trucking and what I would do differently if I start today. Most trucking companies that you see on the road right now, they're in two scenarios, specifically last 6, 7 months. One scenario is they're breaking even, means they're not making money, but they're also not losing money. And then scenario number two is they're operating at loss for about 2 to 3 months now. Most people only talk about success, but not many people sharing how they failed in trucking. I'll just give you everything that the reason why I failed it, just step by step. I did that because of that. I failed it. I used this bank and I failed it. I bought this truck. I failed it. I didn't go into this market, but then I preferred going into flatbed market. And that was the reason why I failed it. If I wanted to start today, what I would do differently, the marketing, the sales, hiring dispatchers, hiring the drivers and everything. I really want to talk about which market to choose if you're brand new coming into trucking, wanted to start your trucking company. Maybe you're thinking about buying a box truck, maybe hot shot, maybe reefer, anything means if you're a new carrier, then you'll definitely learn something. And I want to help the stock carriers right now. As I said, for the last 6, 7 months, talking to these carriers and trying my best to consult, to help these carriers with the marketing and then with the operation aspect, all that good stuff. And I want to share those strategies with you as well. Maybe you're interested in owning a trucking company, or maybe you're interested in dispatching, all that good stuff. I do have about 6 questions to cover with you. So I want to personally invite you into the group that I have. The link will be added in the description below. There's a specific group that I have for carriers and brokers and dispatchers. Please just stick around and then I'll be sharing with you, and then there will be a special invitation for you guys. So there's a total of 6 questions. Let me go quickly over them and then I'll just let you know what we'll be covering. The number one question a lot of you ask, you can find those questions in the comments as well. Should I lease, rent, or buy a truck when starting out? These are the people don't know anything about trucking. Maybe, and some people, they're already in dispatching, wanted to start their trucking company. We can definitely talk about that. The second, how many trucks should I start with? Ooh, this is awesome question. And I do have the strategy to share with you. Instead of starting with one truck, there is a strategy I'll be sharing with you. Then third question, is it better to go into flatbed, reefer, or drive in 2025? I do have one market to share with you. And obviously, if you pick that, you'll make money in trucking. And I'll be giving you a lot of reasons. Number 4, this is specifically for carriers. How do I hire drivers if I don't have a strong brand yet? Hiring drivers, we'll be talking about those, paid and free. Number 5, what's the best step if I wanted to become a carrier, but I'm currently dispatching? Great question. We'll be going into that question as well. Number 6, what's the biggest mistakes people make when getting loans for their trucks? You better watch. If you're a carrier, just stick with me. This is huge. And I'll be sharing my situation or situations working with the banks, and then obviously switching them back and forth. But then I'll be giving you insights so you can definitely learn about those. This will give you the clarity and courage to start your trucking business. If you're stuck, you can definitely learn something from it. A little bit of a backstory. I started trucking back in 2008, but dispatching actively was about 2014, 2015. 2015, this is where I started my trucking company. But 2014, I was actually dispatching cars, but not the general freight. We'll be talking about this. And a lot of people have questions about, hey, what about car hauling business? And what about general freight? For example, we'll be talking about that as well. In 2008, I was working with one of my friends, and he said, hey, am I buying more trucks? Why don't you come in and be my dispatcher? He said, hey, let's do this as a partnership. Didn't want that. The reason why I was studying English, and then I was more into education, meaning I want to go to state university, get the medical degree, and then life will be awesome. That's at least what my family wants from me. I declined and I said, you know what, I'll be studying, like I want to learn English more. And he's like, I don't even speak English, but then I'm running these trucks. And I know that time, I think he had about 4 trucks. He's like a big 9 car haulers. He's making a ton of money. He's driving a nice car. He's buying a house. And I'm struggling. I'm struggling financially. I'm like sitting in the lectures thinking about running my trucking business. And I said, listen, the next year, what I would do is just go part-time on education, and I'll be working with you, learning the ins and outs of this, how to use load boards, whatnot. Then I realized that there's a central dispatch, is teaching me moving fast. I learned the using how to use central dispatch. Central dispatch is very different than DAT, is very different than the 123 load board and truck stop. Why? Because these are the general freight, and then central dispatch, and one of them is super dispatch, if I'm not mistaken. These are the two load boards very popular on auto transport industry. I started using these, listening to these people, how, or the dispatchers, how they're talking to their brokers, what are the different sizes of cars, and I'm like, okay, now I know the dispatching. So what happened about dispatching for about 6 months. And then I'm like, okay, what I would do now, I want to buy a truck. I'm talking to people, they're in drive-in, they're in a flatbed, learning about the different markets. What I realize is that flatbed market makes money. And then there's a reason. So then I'm like, okay, I want to hire a driver. Then what am I doing? I don't know how to hire a driver. I never did hire a driver. So I'm talking to his friend, and he says, Craigslist and this, social media, post here, post there. Ask people, maybe they have the drivers and they'll be sharing with you. Okay, I don't have a truck yet. What I would do. And then I'm reaching out to my friends who own the CDL. One of my best friends, he got the CDL, and I'm like, hey, I'm starting my trucking company. I want to be a partner with you. I think I use this strategy because I think the only way to convince him is basically giving part of my company, and it's not even started yet. So he had agreed, and he's one of my best friends, and he said, hey, listen, let's do this. And we put some money, obviously the down payment was an issue, and we bought the truck, the first truck. The failing aspect here is that I didn't know anything about general market, which is drive-in, reefer, and the flatbed, meaning load boards are totally different. I'm talking to friends and families. They'll be like, yes, if you use the central dispatch or whatever the load board is, it's pretty similar. You're talking to freight brokers, right? They're shippers and then they're carriers. And obviously there is a broker. You're talking to a broker. He gives you the car or he gives you whatever the freight is. That's not true. Totally different game. The terminology, and then obviously how these drivers picking up the load on the car or whatever the heavy duty equipment is totally different. And obviously tarping, chaining, strapping, all that good stuff. The number one thing that failed me, I bought my first truck without fully knowing anything about general market. Second important thing to note is I didn't know anything about flatbed either. I knew that most people in the flatbed market, and as I said, there is a reason why they're going into the flatbed market. So what I did, I was like, okay, I want to buy the flatbed and I start my company that way. But before actually buying the flatbed trailer, we're talking with my friend who's my partner now, and he'll be like, listen, I moved cars. I'm more comfortable starting car hauler rather than general. I'm like, okay, I think it makes sense because I know how to dispatch in car hauling. So what we did is we bought the car hauler first. So now we're moving. Obviously, we're making money here and there. We quickly realized that buying a second truck, basically scaling this car hauling business is tough. It's labor intensive, capital intensive, and brutally competitive. So what I realized, this is where I'm making the switch. I'm like, okay, I'm moving into Detroit because these people make a lot of money with flatbed. This is where I'm making that mistake. So that's their connection, right? So I didn't know how to dispatch these flatbeds. We sold the trailer, we switched back, we bought the flatbed. Now we're running into general freight. We're using DAT, and at the same time, my people using two load boards. One of them is DAT, and the other one is truck stop, looking at these dual monitors, two screens at the same time. They're booking loads. I'm excited. And moving fast, I'm like talking to my friend and I'm saying, listen, we want to buy a second truck. This is the mistake that I'm making, not even realizing that I'm about to fail my business. Why? First of all, my friend, he's more like operational brain. He knows how to drive. He knows how to fix trucks. But me, more into marketing and sales. To me, it's like we need to buy more trucks and then more trucks and then we'll scale and then we'll be successful. Not knowing my numbers, my cost per mile, is my trucking company ready to buy another truck, for example? We're not even looking at those numbers, thinking by default that if we add more trucks, we'll be making more money. That logically makes sense if I buy 2 trucks, 3 trucks, 4 trucks. I'll be making more money. It turns out if you don't know your numbers, it actually decreases dramatically, and that pulls you towards the bankruptcy. You don't know what's happening. It will be like, what's happening? These people making money, they have tens of, I don't know, hundreds of trucks, and they're making good money, but what's happening with me? Maybe they know their numbers, and that's why they're adding more trucks and they're making more money. But hey, you're making a little bit of money. Maybe we're breaking even, let's say, and we're thinking that, hey, if we add one more truck, we'll be making more money. That's not true. Imagine there is a platform where you log in and you see your company snapshot, meaning there is a green button, red button, and then there's yellow button, for example, shows you, or the indicator. You like running a company snapshot with the click of a button, and it says you're not ready to buy another truck because of X, Y, and Z factors in your business. You're not making last 3-4 months money, or you're breaking even. Your average rate per mile with this dispatcher that you have in your team is about 2.3, but then your cost per mile is 1.9. I just give you an example, and like, you can't buy a truck and you move forward, obviously hire a better dispatcher, or you train your dispatcher, or maybe you switch markets from drive-in, you can go into flatbed, from flatbed go into reefer, but do something so that you can be profitable. Then the second indicator is yellow, thinking, hey, last 6 months, give or take, you're okay, but then be careful. You can buy a truck, but then I think you're better off if you just continue running your just one truck operation for another 2 to 3 months to see if you're in a green light. Like, you can buy a truck. Speaking of a green light, this is what it shows you, like, hey, you're good to go. You're profitable last 3-4 months. It's good. Your dispatcher's making good money. And here's your average rate per mile, and your actual cost per mile is decreased. Your rate per mile increased. Good to go. Buy another truck. This is what your company snapshot gives you that ability. And you use that and you buy a truck. Back then when I started, I didn't have that, right? I'm like, hey, buy a next truck. My second truck will make more money. If I'm making $30,000 as a gross revenue, and I'll be making like 60,000 gross revenue, and then that's it. We're good. So I do have expenses, whatnot, but I'm not thinking in terms of what if my driver like gets violation or accident or truck breakdowns or maintenance or everything. I'm not even thinking about the bad scenario. Why? Naturally, we think in terms of like money. If I buy another truck, I'll be successful. If I buy another truck or add 2 more trucks, and I'll be successful. Obviously, makes sense when you want to increase the profit and the number of trucks equals to greater revenue. And that's not true. Also, not testing the business model. This is where the flatbed comes in. Means back then when I was into flatbed market, I didn't know anything about comparing points. I know that flatbed makes more money just because my friends told me, because they are in the flatbed market. If you're in the flatbed market and reefer, it's all about quality, work, and car hauling included. If you drive-in, it's quantity rather than quality. Why is that? Drive-in makes less money. If you're going into drive-in, you need to increase the number of trucks pretty quickly. Buying more trucks or adding more trucks. Flatbed is more labor intensive, means drivers don't want to do flatbed. Most of the drivers don't want to drive flatbed. Why? Because it's labor intensive. Tarping, one example. Chaining, strapping. Let's put this away and let's talk about the drive-in. Drive-in is less labor intensive. Obviously, you're chaining, strapping inside the trailer, but mostly you're driving. Hiring drivers and buying more trailers, easy. Drive-in is less expensive. Reefer is expensive because of the refrigerated unit. Flatbed is a little bit cheaper than reefer, and drive-in is the cheapest trailer. So buying in bulk, this is one of the reasons why you see a lot of drive-in when you drive out there on the road. That a lot of carriers, they're into drive-in. Why? Because you can quickly scale, and I shared the reasons why. Banks really plays huge role buying a truck. Some people will be thinking like, hey, I want to buy used trucks. I'm not even talking to these big companies. If you're going into buying a truck, I would definitely avoid working with big companies like Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, although they're awesome. Just bear with me. When you're starting out, the hunger to make money, go into business, the excitement blurs everything, and you don't see the terms of conditions and agreements, the contract. You're not paying attention. But then these new coming entrepreneurs into the trucking, they're just signing papers right and left, just signing that give me that truck so that I can just put on the road and then start making money. But what about finding a driver? But what about the market? It's up and down. What about the economy? What if you fail? What if you buy a truck and then a week later it breaks down and then you can't fix it for, I don't know, for 2 months? Then what will happen? So we're not thinking negatively, right? It's just we actively, voluntarily, I would say, ignoring these voices and like, no, I don't want to focus on this because I'm starting a brand new trucking company. I just want to buy a truck. Although some of my friends told me that, hey, be careful when you're working these big banks, just have a small business attorney, just give, I don't know, a couple $100 and then let them go over and then break it down into simplest terms and then explain what you're signing and what you're going into. It's danger zone, and we're not thinking about this. COVID wasn't a thing back then, let's say 2014, 2015, right? People making good money. And for those carriers who've been in business, they know. And carriers making good money back then. So I'm like, okay, we're sitting at the bank and like, hey, signing papers. We're not into evaluating what will happen if we lose. That is the failure aspect. You didn't even start it yet. You already failed it. It's very important. And I do have work around this, not working these big companies out there like Chase, Bank of America, and then Wells Fargo. What about small community banks? For example, we have regions, and these people waiting for your call, they'll be more than welcome to help you to get started with your trucking business. I'll give you an example. It's my personal situation. I was about to buy my first car. So, and one of my best friends, he was in the business, and he said, listen, don't go to the big banks like Chase, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo, although you can do that, but focus on these small credit unions. And I said, okay, well, what's the difference? It's much, much easier to get a loan from them, and you'll know the regional manager or the branch manager just face to face, just build a relationship with them, then you'll thank me later. And I did that. And I know his name, like it was a long time ago, but until now, I remember his name was Tim. If he was watching, I don't know, maybe in the future, maybe watching now, Tim, thank you. He helped me to finance my first car. So I built a relationship. But here is the trick. If you wanted to start your trucking company, build a relationship right now. Even if you don't have a trucking business, I'm telling you, they're waiting for those calls. They're just looking for the opportunity to basically give that money away so that you can make money, so they can make money. Just go and build a relationship with them. So I had this car financed with Tim from Small Credit Union. And then I'm calling this region, small bank. And it's also small bank. It's not part of this Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and Chase. And I'm calling, and then I'm talking to the branch manager, and we build a relationship. When I started my company, and they helped me a lot. If you're in the United States, in any states, they do have the small credit union. Go and build a relationship with them. What I would do differently if I started today, maybe you're dispatching already. I want to say this: learning dispatching and dispatching other people's trucks is crucial for your success. Hear me out. If I want to start right now, what I would do, I'll learn. First, don't pay any money to anybody to learn how to dispatch. Be honest with you, I have a lot of content on this channel. Learn how to dispatch first. Learn ins and outs of these load boards. DAT has different subscriptions. Different subscription levels has different tools. I'll give you an example. DAT has basic $49 per month. And then we have one select. This is what I use, and this is what I recommend to people. And by the way, links will be below this video. You can check it out. $49. You're limited. Yes, you're paying $49, but limited in terms of tools. What are the tools and why it's so important? One of the tools is the market conditions by DAT. This market condition tool allows you to strategically position your trucks in advance before even talking to a broker. You will be able to select drive-in, reefer, flatbed. Let's say if you're in a flat, you will just click on that market and it will just pull hot markets for you to pick from. If you're, let's say, in Charlotte, North Carolina, it will say, hey, don't go to Atlanta, Georgia, go to Louisville, Kentucky, because it has a lot of loads, but trucks. You'll learn about inbound and outbound. And then you will also learn that there's like inbound heavy states and then outbound heavy states. Very crucial to understand and use load boards. And then there is people making mistakes like, hey, I want to go into box truck, hot shot, and I'll be using DAT. I'm like, don't do that. Why? Because DAT, it's not designed for box truck. Although DAT has box truck loads, brokers posting those loads, but it's not for this market. This is very niche specific market. There's some tools out there you can use it. One of them is 123 Load Board. It's specifically designed for this niche market. Although they have loads for box truck, they do have for van, flatbed, and reefer. But mostly you will see that there are a lot of box truck loads, a lot of hot shot loads, there are sprinter van loads. A lot of people asking questions like, I want to go into sprinter van, do dispatch, or where I can find those loads. I'm like, hey, use 123 Load Board. And again, there is a link below this video. You can check it out. There's a 30-day free trial. And obviously that's an affiliate link that I have. So what I would do, I'll learn everything about these tools. You can learn about DAT, and then you can, if you have access to truck stop, you can definitely do that. But hear me out. If you're saying, hey, we don't have access to DAT because we don't have MC numbers, carriers can access no problem, but you have access to 123 Load Board, and I affiliated with 123 Load Board, and I know the co-founder. His name is Lauren. He's an awesome dude, and it's an awesome company, by the way. And then the reason why I say this, because they are dispatcher friendly. What you can do, you can go ahead and buy the subscription, and you can start using the load board, and you can learn in and out. So use YouTube to learn. And then you have these free tools. If you have access to load boards, that's awesome. If you're starting out, focus on YouTube because there, as I said, a lot of videos to learn from. Once you learn how to become a truck dispatcher, know a little bit more about being independent freight dispatcher, how it's different. Truck dispatcher is someone who knows how to use load board, and they'll be working for a single carrier, maybe in office, maybe working remotely for a carrier. Independent freight dispatcher, as name implies, is being independent, working independently, and dispatching multiple trucks. This is where you will need your LLC, and this is where the independent freight dispatching agency comes in. And this is what I teach, how you can become independent freight dispatcher and how you can start independent freight dispatching agency. So once you start your independent freight dispatching agency, you now need to attract carriers. Maybe you right now watching as a dispatcher, you're thinking like, how am I going to attract these carriers? I did this, I did that, and then it wasn't successful. I'm not telling you that you need to go to FMCSA, download the list and start calling these people. The reason why you don't want to do that is because they didn't give you the permission to call them this first. Although it's publicly available, you can download and start calling these people. I wouldn't recommend doing that. Why? Because these people don't know anything about your business and you don't know anything about their business. It's very challenging. Why? Because they have multiple equipments. You need to do filtering by yourself. It's just a PDF. You download a list of carriers and they're new active carriers. That means these people don't know anything about trucking. They just started. They have brand new MCs. And then you learn that the hard way, obviously, that most of the brokers don't work with new MCs. They work with established MCs. That means at least 6 months, you have to be in the business. So then obviously brokers will be assigning loads to you. Although there's some list of brokers out there that can help you with the loads, but it's tough, right? I won't recommend doing that. So how you're going to attract is the paid way and then a free way. Let's focus on specifically how we can do for free because you just starting out. As I said, 123 Load Board will give you the access to carriers. Yes, it's there. So if you want me to do that, I can pull that 123 Load Board. I will show you that how easy it is to sign up and at the same time pull those carriers and then start talking to those people saying, hey, I'm using 123 Load Board. You're using 123 Load Board. I'm a dispatcher. I can help you. That's it. You take it from there. Another way, I think the best way to do is by just marketing. Imagine me right now talking to you and I'm sharing ins and outs of this load boards and whatnot, how to book loads, how to book these high paying loads, how to build lanes, and you watching, you want to do business. Naturally, you attract it and you want to do business with me. What you're doing, you will be following up with me, maybe emailing, maybe follow up on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube saying that, hey, I do have this equipment. I need your help. That means promoting your services by actually creating content, I think is the best way to attract customers. That's what I learned over the years. I taught thousands of dispatchers and talked to what I would say consult many carriers. That works. Instead of going these public database and you just download the list, not knowing anything about the carrier and they don't know anything about you, maybe you're really good at sales, it's not going to last long, the relationship. Why is that? Attracting carriers is one problem. The probability of them saying yes is below 5%, let's say. And then obviously what I'm trying to say is if you convince them and you're dispatching them, this is very important to know that keeping them in the game will be tough. Then the probability of them just disappearing next month after 2 months is pretty high. So you don't want to do that. What you need to do is just basically attract, them to you, have the dispatcher carrier agreement signed, and then you take it from there. Instead of dispatching everything, I need everything. Don't do that. You don't need box truck. You don't need hot shot. You don't need sprint event. Why? Because it's competitive and you won't find loads using these major load boards like DAT truck stop. Don't do that. What you need to do is there's 3 major load boards: drive-in, reefer, and flatbed. Just pick one, flatbed. And why is a flatbed? Flatbed makes the most money. Go do research and you will see that these people making really good money. 35K, some people making 40K gross revenue. It's tough, but then I do know some dispatchers, they make 35, 40K, but then most of the flat owners, they make about 30K gross revenue per month. And then obviously you make percentage, you make good money with that. So pick flatbed and start dispatching flatbed carriers. You start dispatching, you learn, and you're like, okay, and now you're ready to buy a truck. So instead of buying a truck, let me say this, don't buy a truck. Yes, you heard me right. Don't buy a truck. What you need to do is rent. If I were you, I'll do this. There's a company, Penske, Ryder is the best. A lot of people recommending working with Ryder. Why? I think they have the really awesome package. Means renting instead of buying. I'll give you a reason and I'll tell you why. Very important, very strategic. If I'm not mistaken, I think they will give you 4 or 5 trucks. Right off the gate, you starting your trucking company, they'll give you 4 or 5 trucks. Why is that? Probability of you failing your trucking company if you start with 1 truck, let's say it's 90%. That's for sure. The probability of you failing your trucking company if you have 3 or 5 trucks, you started with 3 or 5 trucks, that decreases drastically. Maybe it's now 40%, let's say. Why is that? Listen, if you have 1 truck, if it breaks down, that's it. You're pretty much out of business, right? It's, as I said, it's capital intensive business. It will be eating your money, right? So you'll be out of pocket. So if you're low on money, that's it. It's gone, right? God forbid, accident. One of my drivers was hit by a car in California. I don't even want to talk about that. It's nightmare. Don't want that happen to, God forbid. So if that happens, that's it. You're out of business. Like insurance will give up on you. That's it. You won't be able to make money, and you will just, the next logical action will be just filing a bankruptcy or just going out of business. That's it, right? Trucks, repossessed, all that bad stuff. You don't want that. Imagine now 3, 4 trucks. 1 breaks down, 2, 3 is running. That's what Ryder wants. If I wanted to start today trucking company, I won't buy a truck. I start with Ryder. I'll get 4 or 5 trucks and I'll start dispatching because I know how to dispatch. Remember, we started with independent freight dispatching, then independent freight dispatching agency. I dispatch multiple trucks. I know the terminology and everything ins and outs of this general freight. Now I'm ready to buy my trucks. Now, here is the deal. Don't combine these 2 companies, like dispatching company and trucking company. I made that mistake. You don't do that. Why? And here's the reason. Back then, when I was running my carrier side of the business, I was hiring owner operators under my MC. Okay. It's very attractive to those people who own truck and trailer. And it's for me very attractive because I'm not buying trucks and trailers. I'm just dispatching and getting my 10%. So then I'm hiring these people under my MC, right? And I'm dispatching and then I'm getting my 10%. They're happy. I'm happy. So then one day driver calls you or one of your owner operators calls you, these are the people under your MC says, hey, I have a violation or violations, this or that, right? Guess what? It affects me, my company, not theirs. Why? Because they don't have a company. They're working under my MC. There is an agreement, obviously, right? But hey, imagine one of your own owner operators is like, I have a really bad accident. That's it. You're in a lawsuit. You're in a bad position. So don't do that. Then when I started dispatch trucks, what I did, I separated. This is my trucking side of the business. Prime Express runs own trucks, 4 or 5 trucks. And then here's my dispatching business, dispatch trucks, dispatching all the owner operators. I'm not taking 5%, maybe I'm taking 7%, but hey, they have their own MC and they're leveraging my company and my dispatchers, and we both happy. That is very important. Then obviously what I said, you're dispatching, you have your dispatching company, let's say ABC dispatching company. Now you ready. Then what do? You start your trucking company. You already have your dispatching company. Rent the truck from Ryder, let's say, and you start dispatching. And this dispatching company will contract with your carrier side of the business and will be dispatching your trucks. So that's how you make money in trucking. And then obviously avoid those mistakes that I did. Very important. Now, these new carriers and stock carriers, right now, there are a lot of carriers, they're in nightmare right now. They wake up middle of the night, they'll be like, man, I'm 3-4 days away from bankruptcy. And it's very sad that we have that. And what I would say, if you are, let's say, if you're on drive-in, you're not making money, try to rent flatbed trailers. And again, don't go into buying mode. Don't do that. You can anytime buy a truck. Don't do that. Just remember that there are some companies like Penske, they're Ryder. I think the best option is Ryder. You can rent trailer, pay a couple $100, and then just dispatch and see how that goes. And if you make more money, obviously you can switch fully from, let's say, drive-in back to the flatbed. That would be the number one reason. And obviously scaling will be, you can slowly scale because it's not a numbers game when it comes to flatbed. And as I said, it's very labor intensive than drive-in. Drive-in is it's numbers game. Add more drivers and then, hey, you're making good money. Hiring drivers, and I think this is where I made a mistake, coming back to the mistakes. I was hiring drivers, so desperate, needing these drivers. I'm on social media. I'm on Craigslist. I'm like calling my friends. Yeah, I need a driver. I didn't think about training them, like not even running a background check. Hey, do you have a CDL? That's if you have a job. You setting yourself up to failure. Please don't do that. Even if you're just starting out brand new, you're talking to a driver, look into a background. Clean background is very important. If they don't have a training, be careful. If you have a like training department or something like that, you can definitely train them, but hire trained CDL drivers. If they're not trained, they don't know what they're doing. I made that mistake. I remember I bought this brand new trailer, brand new truck, and we had an accident. First load, I desperately needed a driver. I'm like, man, we're killing it. We need this trailer. We bought this trailer and then he messed up. You don't want to be in that situation. Like as a business owner, you're looking at, man, what am I doing wrong? Obviously, you don't know your numbers. You don't train your drivers, you hiring, riding left. And at the same time, I want to share this with you. I don't know if you're a business owner watching this. I was like too personal with my drivers. I was making real connections with my drivers, like treating them my best friends, treating them like their family members, although they're part of the family. Yes. But hey, business is business. I made that mistake. I need to be too personal with them. Hey, let's go to this restaurant with you. Hey, let me do this with you, do this for you or that for you. I try to understand this. And then quickly you realize that you made big mistake, allowing you to be available 24/7, 365. Although I had dispatchers, I could have just let my dispatchers talk to my drivers. I was more of a friend and they were talking to me like their friends. And you know how you talk to your friends and you know how your friends talk to you, right? They're too personal. You allow them talk the way they talk to you. And obviously we're different. Some people allow more, some people allow less. But then drivers, hey, they're making money and their employees. Treat them as employees. Yeah, I'm not saying that treat them badly, treat them with respect, understand their situation, obviously, but then there should be a barrier. I didn't have that barrier, to be honest with you. So I'm like, we're friends. You're helping me make money. It's like, yeah, now we're friends. Okay, let's see what I can do for you. Don't do that. That's how I would start if I wanted to start, let's say, trucking business today, learning independent freight dispatching, run your independent freight dispatching agency, dispatch other people's trucks, make money, learn the business, then don't buy, rent 2, 3, 4 trucks and then start dispatching your trucks. And then you can grow from there. If you wanted to buy a truck, you can then buy your trucks, but then don't buy right away. Remember at the beginning, we said that we do have these 6 mostly asked questions from the YouTube channel that I pulled, and here are I do have in front of me. Number 1 question is, should I lease or rent or buy a truck when starting out? As I said, when you're starting out, don't buy a truck, rent, and I will give you specific company, Ryder. They have really awesome and competitive package. You will set yourself up for success if you work with this company and don't buy a truck yet. And imagine if something happens, you can definitely turn your trucks back and that's it. You're not making payments. Hey, you're renting them. So you pay as you go. So if you're not making money, you can definitely let them take their trucks back and trailers, whatnot. You can rent trailers and you can rent trucks. And then also what I heard, some regions helping you hiring drivers. Their business model is, hey, help these small carriers to quickly scale, start with 4 or 5 trucks, help this business owner hiring the driver and support them as they go so that we can just give more trucks to these trucking companies. That's why they're pretty successful. Then if I want to buy a truck while you're renting the truck, what you need to do is just build a relationship with these small community banks. Know the regional manager or the manager by name. They're waiting for you. Trust me. Day in, day out, desperately need your call. I would personally go there and just shake hands and say, hey, I'm starting my business. I want to build a relationship because I will be buying trucks or whatever. While you're renting, you're making money. Then you can invest that money like down payment and you can buy your first truck, second truck, whatever. So the second question is, how many trucks should I start with? 1 or more? Definitely, I'm leaning towards more trucks. If I want to start trucking company today, I'll start with 5 trucks. Not 1, not 2, not 3, 5 trucks. And then reason I explained, I don't need to explain again, but if you missed it, you can go back and watch. 5 trucks, I would start my trucking with 5 trucks, not less than that. The next question, is it better to go into flatbed, reefer, or drive in 2025? In 2025, more specifically, I would go into flatbed. If I want to start trucking company right now, yes, because I do have experience, because I was a flatbed carrier myself, I would start with the flatbed because flatbed makes money. And it's many reasons out there, but I will give you the one trick. Banks will be looking at how much money you make. And the flatbed will be making about 30 to 35K gross revenue, and your gross revenue is very important. And now see, if you're making about 30 grand and you multiply it by 5, instead of making 30 grand per month, now you're making 150 because you have 5 trucks. Very important. Not drive-in, brutally competitive. A lot of drive-in players out there. I don't want to do that unless you have direct shipper, right? And you can definitely do that. I don't want to try reefer. Why? Because of the appointments. And I'll give you a reason why. I heard a lot of stories. About 2 days ago, one of my friends hauling watermelons, he was late for appointment. And if you're a carrier watching, you can relate to this. And he just can't deliver and they're not taking it. The receiver says, no, you're late. That's it. Gone. We'll be claiming to your insurance, whatever. So you don't need to do that. Obviously, if you have really good experience in reefer, then you can definitely do that. But I do have a couple of my friends, they are into meat game. They do have direct shipper and they're killing it. They have hundreds of reefer trucks. They're okay. So number 4, how do I hire drivers if I don't have a strong brand yet? So if you don't have the strong brand yet, don't focus heavily on the branding. Even if you haven't started yet, start your social media channels. Very important. Instagram is available for free. And I do know one of my friends, he's killing with his TikTok account, talking about his like day-to-day operation, like how he's hiring his drivers, he's talking to his drivers, he's giving bonuses to his drivers, he's sharing with the world. And obviously CDL owners watching that, and then they'll be like, man, I want to work with this guy. And what they're doing is DMing, and he's see how many drivers DMing me, they want to work with me. I relate to that. Why and how? I do live sessions on TikTok talking to carriers, and carriers will be asking questions like, look up this lane or that lane. I'm like on the load board showing them, helping them, and then dispatchers ask questions. a lot of DMs. Here's asking my help. I need you as my dispatcher. Can we talk? So if you are running a dispatching agency, you can definitely do that. Hey, social media, it's there. You just share what you're doing. That's it. And then people will be reaching out to you saying, hey, I need your help. So if you don't have a brand yet, that's what I would recommend. And secondly, as a carrier, remember this: most drivers, most CDL holders will be working with small companies. And there's a reason. Why? Big companies don't pay much. Small trucking companies pay really good. And at the same time, these people, like drivers, they know the company owner or the president or the CEO, or call whatever you want, the boss by name. They're friends, right? I was one of their friends. Okay. So I shared the story with you already. And just remember that they're willing to work with small carriers, right? If you pay good and you treat them well, they'll stick with you. They don't care how many trucks you have. Man, driver can drive only one truck. If you have even one truck, if you can give him good money, he'll be driving your truck, no problem. And you'll be thinking, like you said, 5 trucks. Man, if you have 5 trucks, hire a driver. It's not, there's no problem with that. If you're in a flatbed, when you hire those people, you just pay them more and just attract that way. Give them more money. Okay, it's okay to not make money 3, 4, 5 months. It's okay. You just build your business. That is that. And number 5, what's the first step if I wanted to become a carrier, but I'm currently dispatching? If you're currently dispatching, you are in a good position. What I would recommend is focus on the market that you're going into or wanted to go into. I'll give you an example. If you dispatching box truck, hot shot, sprinter van, but what I would do, maybe you're dispatching drive-in, you're dispatching RGN loads or refill loads here and there, flatbed, and then you want to go into the flatbed, hire more flatbed owners and learn more about, and then you can obviously not buying, renting trucks, right? 3, 4, 5 trucks at a time. And then that's how I would start. And that's what I would recommend. Now, what's the biggest mistakes people make when getting loans for trucks? As I said at the beginning, number 1 mistake that they're making, they're not paying attention to terms and conditions and contracts, not reviewing them, just signing, writing left. I want that truck. Just let me sign this. How many pages left? Or I desperately want this truck. I wanted to put this truck on the road and then start making money. This is where they're setting them for a failure. Right then, it's like, hey, slow down. Just think in terms of what would happen when you put that truck on the road. Will you be able to hire a driver, a good driver? Will you be making money? What about the economy? What will happen tomorrow? We don't know. So you just need to slow down. That's the mistake people making. You just slow down and you think, I would hire a small business attorney, just let them review, saying that, hey, just break it down into plain English, explain me what I'm signing, what are the terms, what should I need to pay attention. You'll quickly realize that, hey, there are a lot of moving pieces in those contracts. Just be careful with those. And obviously, the second biggest mistake that these new coming carriers making, working with like big banks like Bank of America, Chase, or Wells Fargo, don't do that. There are plenty, hundreds of thousands of other small credit union banks, small banks that are willing to work with you, and they're very competitive. You're not thinking about this. Oh, Chase is good. Chase is good if you really have up and running business. Long term, yes, I would definitely recommend working with Chase, but not at the beginning, not even buying your truck at the beginning. I was attending one of the trucking events and I was talking to a couple of trucking owners. One of them has about 700 trucks, the other one close to 200 trucks. And what they told me is that none of those trucks, they don't own those trucks. It's all by rider. They renting those trucks. I just talk only to these 2 owners. They're pretty much renting hundreds of trucks and killing it. They're making a lot of money in trucking and they don't own any trucks. You can be asset-based. You can search for that term, asset-based trucking company. Obviously, there's some advantages and disadvantages. I'll give you an example. I have one of my friends, he's asset-based. And he buys right and left these car haulers because they hold a value. They're not depreciate that much. Like your drive-in and reefer and flatbed will depreciate pretty quickly, but then they hold the value, car haulers. So he's buying it. And he's, hey, if I'm not making money, I'm good. Like when I'm paid off, I can just sell my trucks and I'll have millions of dollars. That's an asset based. So if it's very downtime, let's say the bad economy, he's using money that he sold these 2 trucks, putting back into the business, and that's how he makes money.